Yeah. And well, he bounces Paul from the promotion.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
he's
like
gone.
You know, I mean, Zuffa doesn't want to have anything to do with Paul Daley.
Nothing.
You know, so I mean, yeah, they're doing what they need to do for this fight, get him in there, whatever. Got to put him in the promotional materials, but so it's big on that sense too, because where he gets to eliminate even ever having to fight Paul again, probably.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Nick. I think he does, maybe not. I don't want to call it the right thing. I mean, I'm not his coach, but I think what's right for him tonight: take him down, get the submission, walk out of there without any major injuries.
Oh, I love it.
Get ready for a fight in the big time, baby. And then I think, Tetsuya Kawajiri, he's a big test. I mean, he's definitely a legit challenger.
Have you seen their first fight? They fought in Pride in 2006.
Right, like a few years back.
Yeah, I was watching it, and Gilbert looked like he was about 14 in the fight. Great fight, though.
Yeah, loved his hair in that fight.
Yeah, but I think he's come a long way since then as a fighter.
Yeah, likewise. I'm gonna go with Gilbert. I think what that is the
What is that? Timmy?
What's up, Timmy?
Hey, Tim.
Yeah, we've got got a few viewers. Yeah.
All right, continue. Sorry, I sort of jumped in on your pick.
We gotta fire this producer, bro.
You're out.
Out. Yeah, if you want to be a producer for the 6 Round podcast, you just go ahead.
Get at us.
Shoot me an email.
We're big time now.
Yeah, we're gonna get picked up by Showtime,
big
man.
Time.
I just know it. I feel
Move over, Baz Rutten.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And yeah. Baz, you're in trouble. No, not even remotely close. We love you, Baz. Yeah. So Gilbert. We'll go with Gilbert. I mean, I think it's the wrestling that's going to be the difference. Not to say that Tetsuya's got terrible wrestling, he's a terrible fighter. I think the fact that he didn't train in a cage at all coming into this fight, that's a big
You saw what Gilbert
deal.
did to Aoki when he didn't know how to fight in a cage.
Exactly. I mean, when you're fighting in a ring, it's different. It's just different, man. There's different reffing. There's no, you can't, cage walk. There's clinching. All that doesn't really come into play when you're in the ring.
There's no corners, which creates a ton of space.
Yeah.
A ton of space, which people aren't used to.
So I think for that alone, I mean, not to say I don't want to ignore Gilbert's striking too. I mean, he's much improved boxing over the past few years. Yeah, I mean, when you're training with guys like Nick Diaz,
it's gonna happen.
Over where they bring in good boxers to train with, that's definitely going to be an area where you improve with the Cesar Gracie team. So in any case, long-winded explanation, but I'll take Gilbert hands down. And but I think it'll be a decent performance from Kawajiri.
Yeah, it'd be Friday night material if this were, a UFC broadcast.
For sure, yeah. And it pains me to say this because I'm such a diehard Keith Jardine fan.
Are you really?
Oh, I love Keith Jardine.
No way. That guy stinks.
Oh, no.
I don't think I've ever cheered for him.
Oh, man. What stinks is the hate that Keith deals. I mean, he's a humble guy. He's moving down to 185, which I think is a smart move because if he has a good showing in this fight, 185 is super thin.
Monster 185 or 2.
And
he would be bigger than everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a big 205er.
Big 205er, and he said, in his interview with Ariel this week that he was really taking his diet seriously, and then he was already in the process of cutting down to 185 when they called him up for this, and you could see he was a little bit more slender, but not. I mean, not like smaller or anything, but just less body fat.
He's never ripped at 205, but he's hulking. He's
right.
He's
got a big dude.
He's just a big guy
for sure. So I think even if he loses this fight, which you said is a lock, I mean that's just gonna happen.
If there's such thing as a lock, it's that fight.
I think if he has a good showing, regardless of what happens in the fight, for him moving down to 185, and now that Zuffa owns Strikeforce, 185 is,
I feel
185 is thinner than I am.
185 in both. I feel like 185 is also very thin in Zuffa.
Yeah, it could be.
What they need to inject Jacare in there and bring back Robbie Lawler, and that's a very thin division in both promotions.
I need me some more Jacare,
when
bro.
Patrick Cote and Talis Latis were getting title shots.
Those were dark times.
Some very dark times in the history of the UFC.
Yeah.
Even Damian Maia. I love Damian Maia, but come on.
Rough, man. And we had everybody over that night to watch that fight. It was like 30 people.
It was bad.
It was the Anderson Silva Damian Maia fight. Terrible. But, so... the smart pick is Gegard in here. I'll be pulling for Keith, though.
That's crazy. Let me ask you this. I never knew you were such a big Jardine fan. He's
sure.
fought two of your two favorite fighters, and he beat one of them. Forrest Griffin and the Axe Murderer. He's fought both of them. How did you feel about those fights?
Well, the Axe Murderer destroyed him.
Yeah, and now is he your favorite or is Forrest your favorite?
Vanderlei's my all-time favorite. All-time favorite.
God, I just started following him on Twitter this last week.
Right?
Oh, he's amazing.
At WandFC.
Yes.
You got to follow
Vanderlei Silva.
Yeah.
He is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, actually, you know what? We're going to send a little shout out to WandFC.
And so that must have been a hard fight for you to watch, both of them. When he beat Forrest, I mean, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I just I don't know. It was whenever I saw him fight, I knew that you're going to get a good fight. So I was excited to see him fight because I remember this was a while back when he fought Chuck Liddell.
Yeah,
I was watching.
Now that was a fight.
That was a great fight.
Destroyed him with leg kicks, and that was Chuck's fight after he beat Vanderlei, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Chuck
it was.
lost to Rampage, fought Vanderlei, fought Jardine. He was still the Iceman then,
for sure,
for the most part.
That
was a little bit in the downswing, because he was immediately destroyed by Rashad Evans after that. Yeah. But you know, that opened a lot of people's eyes to the talent of Keith Jardine. I think it confused a lot of people that he can't fight like that anymore. When has he had a performance like that?
I know he was saying, he was like, I'm training so hard, and he's at Jackson's. Yeah, he's gonna be training hard. You know, like he's one of those guys. I mean, like
the best camp in the world.
Right? Yeah, it's great, and like by all reports, you know, he's training. But then it got to be to the point where he realized and said, you know, in his interview this week too with Ariel Helwani on MMAfighting.com, that he was overtraining, just ridiculously overtraining for all these fights. The Hamill fight, he said after 5 minutes he had nothing to offer.
One of them had a staph infection that fight too. That was just a bad fight.
Hamill did, yeah.
So one of them's overtrained, the other has a staph infection.
Terrible,
It was on a terrible fight night card.
Finale.
It was a finale.
Oh yeah, that was the main event.
Yeah. Chris whatever.
That was a good fight. I like that fight.
Chris McRae.
Yeah,
hometown boy, Chris McRae, who's terrible.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
That was a weird night. That was a weird night. But yeah, so I was watching him fight the guys that I like to watch, and then I mean that fight was a while back.
And that's how you got.
Yeah, I mean I started noticing that like every time Keith fought, or even every time he fights now, he's not a different guy now. He's still Keith Jardine. Like it's just a good fight. You know?
Like him.
But a lot of
people,
people,
I don't like him because I don't like Rashad Evans.
I think a lot of people don't like him because there's not really anybody like him. Like he gets in there and he gives people problems that people have, you know.
But at the same time, they've solved that riddle. That is Keith Jardine, which is
why he needs to mix things up.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll see what he brings tonight. He said you're going to see a new Keith Jardine, and he's never really said that before. He said he's like, I'm working harder. Yeah. You know, I'm training harder. I'm doing this, but you know, I'm lifting weights more and stuff. And it was more and more work, and he's getting more and more burned out. So maybe, you know, it sounds like he's learned from that. You know, he's changing his diet up. He's moving down to 185. You know, he says he's taking less of a beating in training and really tailoring his training to peak at the right time, which is during the fight. You know, so
I didn't know you were this big Keith Jardine flag waver.
Love me some Keith Jardine.
I like it. You're pulling me over. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Keith. I don't want you to go into a coma anymore. I will just settle for
a good fight
first
tonight.
Round brutal TKO that you do somewhat survive, because I love Gegard.
Yeah.
I want to see him in Zuffa. I want to see him run through 205.
Yeah, so he can catch all the dreams.
I want to see him run through everyone in 205, and I want to see him fight Johnny Bones. Get bodied, but that's
it'd be good. So many good matchups at 205 for Gegard.
And 205 is a dream class. Where the divisions are thin, it's made up for in 205. That's where all the best fighters are.
That's true. Yeah, 205 is a freaking Shark Tank. I feel like 205 and 155.
Oh, 155 is amazing.
You know, and then in terms of my last pick for Strikeforce between Aoki and Beerbomb, I want to go with Beerbomb. Just because, not that I think that Aoki can't win. I think that what's going on there is that you've got Beerbomb is the guy who can do something like catch Shinya, you know, on the feet. Yeah. Or in the transition right after the takedown where they're jockeying for position. I feel like he lands some elbows, which are now legal on the ground in Strikeforce. So that's big for a fight like this where you've got guys that are probably going to go to the ground, you know? And then so that opens up some big weapons for him that he's been able to use on the local circuit.
And that's,
to get some wins.
Probably why he was struggling his first two fights in Strikeforce. The first was a razor-thin decision versus Ribeiro.
Yeah,
and then he lost his last fight, and he hasn't had his main tools at his disposal, which is those elbows on the ground, which he has now. So it'll be exciting. And
he's got jits. You know, I mean, he's able to go down there and he's.
I mean, there's jits and there's Aoki jits.
Aoki jits is silly.
Oh my god,
I love it.
There's black belts and there's black belts.
Yeah,
and Shinya is the black.